Jeremy, it's great to have you here today to talk with us. You are a new CTO at Purple Cow Internet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your first-time role as a CTO and the challenges that you're facing there, and what life is like so far in the new role?
Sure. So it's a pleasure to be here, Dave. Always great talking to you. So I've been with Purple Cow for about 2 or 3 months now. It's my first time in this position as a CTO. Traditionally, when something didn't go right in a company, where there's any kind of failure, you sort of just blame the management. I guess I don't have the liberty of that this time. It's good.
What are your priorities? As you've kind of embarked on, first like a 90-day plan. How have you been approaching it? I assume that as a hot new startup, there are things that you're bringing to the table that they didn't have previously, and
Sure.
Some of the challenges you've solved in the past with data and systems at scale. What are your priorities coming into the game and in the new role, and how are you going to execute?
Well, maybe I can just set the table a little bit.
Sure.
And tell you a little bit about Purple Cow.
Yep.
So it's an internet service provider. We, in Canada, you have what are called TPIAs. These are companies that buy wholesale internet and resell it to customers. And that's a well-baked model. There's a lot of companies doing that across Canada. How Purple Cow differentiates themselves is by delivering incredible customer service, right? And a big part of that is based off automation. From day one, it was, let's keep the team, small, agile, and focus our attention on talking with customers directly, right? And so the two founders of the company are very much young. They are, believe in technology and think that is the basis of what's going to differentiate them from other people in the market. And so far, they've been bang on. Our customers love being able to text in with questions and get responses from people and real follow-ups, as opposed to chat bots and waiting on hold for somebody to get back to you, right?
Great. Yeah, certainly. It's Amazon's customer obsessed, and I think technology's part of that. But listening to the customer and making the customer front and center is always key to quickly actioning the feedback. And it sounds like you guys are off and running doing that. So that's great. And certainly I know from my talks with you that you're a great listener. I know you probably are taking that feedback and trying to action it into the tech stack there and help your business and your customer. So that's great. Speaking of new technology, where do you find out about new technology, and what's the watering hole that keeps Jeremy's mind moving on new things that you might apply in your current role or in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. I attend a lot of conferences, usually to meet people and socialize. But over the past 2 years, they've been all online. But that's usually a really good place to get sort of a lay of the land, the trends that are changing, some of the challenges that are facing current technologies, how different companies have come up with solutions to those challenges. So that's generally where you sort of see what's going on. The AWS has always been a big one. They're sort of leading the charge in cloud technology. So the new services they release each year at AWS reInvent.
That's right.
So every year at reInvent, they'll often introduce a new service that will address a fundamental problem that I've been facing or a team I work with has been facing or something like that. So it's always exciting. This year I attended GopherCon for the second year, so that's Golang, and
Great.
That was really great. There was some talks about mainframes in particular, which were a lot more interesting than I would have thought before going into it. But yeah, conferences and recorded talks on how people have solved like a retroactive. How did certain companies address scale issues and think about the decisions they were making at the time.
exciting to get back, in these COVID days, to get back to in-person meetings. And I think they were expecting 20,000, and it was well attended, and people were masking and being safe, but those that were there to solve big problems at scale, and they were there to learn about new things. And certainly Chaos Search, we unlocked the power of cloud object storage, the economics of that, and our core technology allows you to realize data lake thinking, and we're disruptive in our ability to scale and perform. So we were excited about it. And
that's actually where I met Thomas.
That's
at Chaos.
That's right.
That's where I was introduced to Chaos Search and Thomas. At these conferences, there's often a lot of big claims. We can solve all your problems. Just you can sign up here. And I remember we were looking for a data storage solution, and somebody was talking about compression rates of 80%, and I said, "Oh, so you invented middle out compression?" And Thomas came over, and your founder, and started walking me through the technology. And yeah, we kicked the tires, and it turned out to be quite impressive technology. So,
oh, that's great. Yeah. So certainly, I forgot. I think that was 2018 or what year that was. But reInvent was the place where we met you first. In terms of data and the challenges that you have now, and even in the conversations at the Golang conference and mainframes, this data lake thinking and bringing data together, are you hearing that more and more? And how are you harnessing the power of centralizing data at scale, and the tools, the kind of tools that you're bringing to bear? In addition to certainly Chaos Search, I know you've had experience with us, but other ways to tackle the problem and some of the challenges that you're seeing with data.
Yeah, I think data lakes are probably different from sort of company to company, how they think about them. The sort of problems I was faced with before was, I really wish we didn't have to throw out that data because of constraints. And 10 years ago, anything you wanted to store, you had to design a relational database. You had to purchase some servers, rack them. Like, it was a big ordeal. So there was a cost to storing data, which was often prohibitive. And now with like data lakes and compressed data lakes, and you don't have to make that sacrifice. You don't need to. You have the luxury of storing the data and being able to go back later and see, is there value here? Can we, do something with this? Is there a signal we can tease out that could prevent, some sort of failure or something? And so that's what's been really exciting is, not having to make that compromise on the storage of data.
That's what we're finding with our our initial go-to-market at Chaos Search has been around the log and event space, but we are very much a data platform, and people having to make hard choices about throwing data out, that may have, there's diamonds there that for a variety of use cases, whether it's long tail analysis of threats from a security perspective, or customer behaviors or those types of things. So we certainly agree, and we'll be in 2022 coming out with more APIs to access data in our data platform. In addition to the Elasticsearch API, there'll be access through SQL and JDBC and the Presto dialect. So we're excited about that, and hopefully that will unlock a lot more value that you've described there in the use cases that you've been talking about.
So Dave, I've got a question for you, and I'm not sure if you're ready for this, but how soon before we can just start getting anomaly detection out of the box?
It is on the roadmap. I don't want to get in any trouble by throwing a date out, but I do hope that it's in 2022. I'm not sure say exactly when, but we definitely agree that there's being able to apply AI concepts to data, especially when you're able to assemble and centralize data at scale in a data lake. There's a lot of opportunity there with anomaly detection. For a variety of use cases. So great question. I'm excited about it too. Certainly would love to be having it in people's hands now. But how are you guys thinking about that at Purple Cow? Are you applying AI to anything in your stack now? And are there tools like SageMaker or TensorFlow? What kinds of things are you guys using or thinking about using, or what have you heard? I know you're a huge consumer of podcasts and trade shows, et cetera. Like, what are you hearing?
Yeah. So, like the there's so many facets of machine learning and different ways that it can be applied to our business, where we're trying to understand where the most juice out of the squeeze is. Or sorry, we're sort of right now trying to decide where is the most juice out of the squeeze. That's like a weird way of saying that. Maybe we can fix that in post. But we've talked about a few different applications, and one of them would be, as we're having conversations with customers, is there any sort of sentiment analysis that we could help our reps with? Are there things like processes that right now require a human to make decisions about, where if we were to bring in AI, it could, automate that, remove that need for somebody to touch something manually? And so that's sort of how we're thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, the world of machine learning is absolutely incredible, and the applications that are becoming available seem to be, growing every day.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will say this though, I mean, it's wonderful to talk about, new opportunities to bring technology to bear, but with centralizing a data, often old school approaches to just, more rigorous rules or querying allow you to kind of get different answers. And I know, you and I have talked a little bit about, troubleshooting process and how you might attack that problem, and being able to do it with, just narrowing the scope. And I don't know, you had some strong feelings about that the last time we talked.
Well, Dave, I have a saying, right? What is that saying? I always forget.
I think you labeled it as effective troubleshooting. It's about systematically removing assumptions.
It's so good. Yeah, like that's all you should be doing is when you're troubleshooting is just systematically be removing the assumptions you're making and getting closer to the root cause. So many times when there's a problem that a team I'm on is trying to address, it's by overlooking something, by just assuming it's not contributing to the issue, and oftentimes we're surprised.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know, in our customer base now, when you have the ability to to search over larger amounts of data, often you can ask questions that you weren't able to ask before. Sometimes that falls into the assumption bucket, but I think the power of your narrowing the universe and removing assumptions is a great part of troubleshooting. And then flipping the script too. A lot of times, building great solutions are about starting small and scaling on the opposite side. So I think some of the tech that we're providing allows people to, hey, I want to harness value out of a cloud object storage. I'm going to start with a use case that I hadn't thought of, and now I'm pushing data to S3, and I can immediately get value out of it that I previously hadn't, and I don't have to throw it away. So that flipping the systematic removal or systematically removing, the building concept can work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you about your view of the world. We're 10 years down the road, maybe. Does everything start in a data lake? Does that become the first place it lands, and then some process is done, or is that sort of a piece of the development life cycle? Like, because oftentimes when I think of data, it's we need real time analytics from this, and sometimes there are tools that might be more optimized for real time, like data engines that are more optimized for real time analysis. So Sure. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean, we certainly realize that there are systems and products that data flows through, and you might want to action it in a sub-second way. But what we learned, I think Thomas noticed this as he started to think about this, revolutionary indexing technology and the core invention that he came up with in Data Edge. It really didn't necessarily have to be run on top of Cloud Object Storage, but as he thought about it more, he realized he could make Cloud Object Storage perform, like SSDs, and because of the distributed nature of what he was doing. So it doesn't mean that everybody has to have the data there initially. Certainly other systems, edge computing, 5G, Amazon certainly, bringing about more compute available at the edge with local zones and things like outposts. But what Thomas realized is that generally everybody is bringing data eventually to cloud object storage. So why not get value out of it there immediately, and also use it to centralize? But there's no doubt that the power and say a phone is what was once available in a supercomputer, and the amount of memory on these things. So we do realize that applications at the edge will often do important things, but eventually I think centralization, long-term storage of that data, additional kind of use of the data, refining the data, augmenting it, marrying it up with other data. I think that's where the real power of a lake comes together, where you're bringing all those data sources into one spot.
At one of these AWS conferences, I think this was one of the local ones, they were talking about S3 storage, and they said in engineering terms, you often give reliability as they're stated in SLAs, which is like, oh, this is 4 nines of availability or 5 nines of availability. The speaker said, well, S3 storage is 11 nines of availability. And it was like, it would take, if you were to write 100,000 files, it would take like 1,000,000 years before you get one corrupt. And it's like, no one can call them out on that. You can be like, oh, well, mine has 13 nines of availability, right? I just thought it was...
It's hard to call that bluff, but I guess they've of all the services, that one has been the most robust, and they've set a high bar for others, for sure. But and unfortunately, the cloud does have outages from time to time, but S3 has been really stable. But the 11 nines, for those that do the math on like the number of seconds per month or year, it's like slicing that second quite a bit to get to 11 nines.
Yeah, it's essentially once, our galaxy merges with the next galaxy, one of the files will flip a 1 to a 0 or something.
Well, so hats off on that.
Yeah, so in terms of, you guys have realized this value in object storage, right? And you're optimizing it, making it better, getting more use out of it. Do you see other companies following suit, like other technology companies trying to mimic some of the approaches you guys have taken?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that a lot of the players are realizing that cloud object storage is a place where people want to bring data and get value out of it. Even Amazon themselves, they talk about their data strategy. It often, I think it was just 2 reInvents ago, Andy Jassy went through the slide of their data ecosystem and all of the database products from Athena to RDS, you name it. But generally, data started in S3 and it would kind of move around and into these products and back. So we it's true of the other clouds. I know, certainly Google and GCS and BigQuery, Google Cloud Storage is a big part of the story, and the same in Azure. So we do think that, a lot of the companies, Snowflake, Databricks, S3 and cloud object storage is really a fundamental part of the journey. But there's varying degrees of truth of like how folks are harnessing power and value quickly out of data and in S3, and there's a lot of movement from most of the players. I think we're kind of revolutionizing in the fact that we really do read and write and query and index all out of cloud object storage, and our security model is really unique in that it's the customer. We are a SaaS platform, but all of this reading and writing happens inside the customer's Amazon or Google account. So it's a unique shared security model. Anyway, long-winded. A lot of great players and a lot of great products, but I think we have some differentiation.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're nervous.
I don't want to toot our own horn either. I mean, I think the focus of this podcast is really more about the general landscape of what's happening in the world of IT and data, and folks like yourself that have handled data at scale for large scale systems that are highly distributed, Data is coming from a variety of sources, both from a usage perspective, a security perspective, and I think you've seen a lot of different use cases and solved a lot of different problems. So that's certainly why we wanted to have you on our first edition of this podcast. What types of databases are you guys using, if you can share, now, and, challenges there? And, I know you've certainly used a ton of databases over your career.
I'm a big Elasticsearch guy. I really, really like Elasticsearch. Back when we started using it in 2015 as our syslog server, it was a really elegant solution to the problems we were having, and not once was there a challenge around scale. So it wasn't, okay, this is the solution for today, and then in a year or two, we'll have to start redesigning. It was, if we need more resources, we'll add more nodes to the cluster. So that'll always, as a first love, that'll always have a special place in my heart. InfluxDB is another database that I've really enjoyed working with. It's a time series database, so it follows the same model, like a full sort of stack of having an ETL agent, then your data engine, and then a front end. But it's specific to time series data. So a lot of sort of network analysis we were doing, we're able to use InfluxDB, and just a really powerful, really great tool to work with. A lot of stuff on AWS, obviously, as there are, a whole host of database engines to choose from. And, as they're more specific, they're better suited for certain use cases. They're better suited for different use cases. Today at Purple Cow, a lot of the Purple Cow started about 2 years ago, and the founders have a tremendous amount of grit, right? And so they might not know how to solve a problem, but they will solve it just out of sheer tenacious effort. Yeah. And to really, I'll tell you, I know the founders are Brad and Joe, and I got a call from Brad about 2 years ago, and he said, "Hey, Jeremy, I'm starting an internet company." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were a big network guy." And he goes, "Oh, I'm not. Actually, I'm calling because I need your help. Because before I can start an internet company, I need to buy some IPs. They're telling me I need IPs." And I was like, IPs? I've been in computers a while. I've never heard of these IPs. Can you spell an IP for me? And he goes, "Yeah, IP." "Yeah, Brad, I don't think you should start an internet company, man." But here we are 2 years later. They're one of the fastest growing internet companies in Canada. And so the tool set they had at the time was Salesforce, which is a CRM and CRM on steroids, maybe. And so using a lot of
the SaaS movement, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're using a lot of the bells and whistles and internal sort of exactly. And so that's how they're sort of delivering it today. A lot of the automation that I've worked on, talks to Salesforce as a means of extending that functionality. And so that's a big part of the solution today. I hope someday we migrate towards something that is less constrained.
Well, I mean, hats off to your founders. I think that the value that you're creating in your space, you're using the stack that was the most expeditious in time to value, and that's all that I think innovative business people will, stick to, the North Star of what you think your mission as a company is, and then bring the suitable thing that will get you to market and realize revenue quickly. So that sounds like the way you started a platform. But it sounds like they brought you in because they know you're going to help them. You're their future proof on the tech side, I gather.
I mean, I'm the guy who knew how to get them some IPs. So right off the bat,
IPs 4, IPs 6, you got it all.
Exactly. It's been really great. We have a lot of, it's funny because, when you're in computer science, so much of how you think about problems is doing it right. How do we build this in a way which we're not going to be chasing ghosts in 6 months, or
Yep.
we can make changes without having to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know if that's a correct thing to say anymore. Is that?
I don't either, but I know what
Okay.
you mean.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy to fit the bill.
So there's a lot of times where it's like, look, if we want to build this correctly, and
Right.
and they have I want to build things that are incredibly robust and
Yep.
spend a tremendous amount of time. And then there's the sort of startup mentality where it's like, well, we just need minimum viable products.
Yep.
And let's build something that works today, and then we
Yep.
can always come back to it later. Now, anyone who's been in computer science for a while is like, we'll build it today and fix it later. They know that that's a fallacy. They just
Right.
know that it's like, no, tomorrow we'll be doing things, features we're
Yep.
planning for tomorrow. Like, there is no luxury often of coming back. It's usually deciding
Tech debt
we need
goes
to.
up.
Yeah, we need to start all over. And so
Yeah.
there's like a really healthy back and forth
Sure.
between the three of us on
Yep. That's great.
where are those thresholds, right? Where do we decide to invest more in the infrastructure and stuff like that?
That's great. Well, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I started, I did internships at companies like Data General and Lotus, and saw the mini computer era move into the PC era and PC software Lotus, but then landed at a startup which was acquired by Sybase, and Sybase and Oracle were going head to head at the time. And relational databases, at that time in the 90s had been around for, a couple of decades. And, when you mentioned Salesforce, knowing how much data they have in their environment, wonderful past, highly extensible. Certainly, they were the pioneers of SaaS computing, hashtag no software. But, constraints, their success, eventually, you outgrow those databases. And, I think to Thomas's core invention, he saw the cliff that those technologies were hitting. So his thinking and data engine, coming together where it is today. We're really excited to see, we talk about MVP, folks can come and use our product and get answers and think about building product and stick to their knitting. So, we hope to help solve those types of problems when people are thinking about MVP. But certainly it sounds like you've got a good relationship with your founders relative to how you guys are going to attack, next iterations of your products and how you'll make tech decisions about, the stack.
What really excites me is GraphQL as a technology, because what that might allow us to do is slowly migrate from one engine to multiple engines.
Yep.
And as opposed to say, okay, we're going to build out this other system, we're going to test it, and then one day we're going to turn off the lights of the old one and hope everything keeps running. But
Yep.
by having a GraphQL abstract the back-end engines, it means we can sort of move those pieces out, switch those pieces out, and not affect the front end or the processes that are currently relying on those data engines. So that's something I'm really excited about. GraphQL has been a lot of fun to work with, and really enjoying the features of the technology. When do you think we'll be able to get an automatic schema generator for chaos search with the anomaly detection you promised everyone? Don't forget. You said 2022.
I might be in trouble on that front, but I know we've certainly we've got it on the roadmap and have done some initial discussion and design, so we know where we're headed there. Certainly, Thomas, I think you may have asked this question about GraphQL, and I know the data representation and the way that the data edge works, the core index, has some really amazing flexibility. So we may be able to bring some graph qualities to our relational, the way we look at data. The core intellectual property that's been developed is really flexible, and I'm continually blown away when Thomas will go, hey, I've thought of this new way where we can use this, whether it's in a unique way to cache results and or bring in relational concepts into this product. And it's funny, we'll be actually introducing some of those relational correlation concepts, which will be able to be applied to views, which can be demonstrated through our Elasticsearch API into our embedded Kibana. So, correlating different data sets or indexes in the Elasticsearch world to be able to reference one another in a really powerful and scalable way is one of those examples. So I'm excited that you're excited about GraphQL. I have some friends in that space too, and I know it's booming and doing really well. So hopefully we'll be able to enter into that world at some point too. But I think the ML stuff will hit first, and you're not the only one who's pushed us on being more aggressive on that front. But we certainly have plans, and we'll be executing on that. I think in terms of roadmappy type things, we are excited to get into Google Cloud Platform, and we will also be getting to Azure at some point in 2022, hopefully. So we want to be, our platform and our architecture is really multi-cloud right from the outset. We believe in data everywhere and bringing value. So, that's why I guess the topic of this story is about data legends or data legends, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But appreciate the time that you spent with us today. We have a few minutes left, though, so a couple of couple high level questions.
Sure.
If
I'm a Leo. So.
Along those lines, if you were going to write a book, what would it be? If there was a book written about you, what would you like it to be about?
So I don't think I wouldn't take a book about me, right?
Movie?
No, I mean.
Okay.
Vince Vaughn has already played me in a few films, so. But the book I would write, like I believe that. So there's very few. If you look at all of the businesses in the world, right? There are very few accounting firms relative to everything else. I don't know, maybe less than 0.5% or something of actual accounting firms. Yet every major company has an accounting department, right? I very much think that every company, so long as they have laptops or do anything on the internet, should have an automation department. Like there is no company that can't benefit from having some of their tasks done automatically and with reduced human error. Like it's just, to me, it drives me up the wall.
No, I love that. And I do think that, you see these trends like no code, more what's the word for it? Consumerization of IT and shadow IT. I think the signs of people wanting exactly what you're describing is true, and maybe there's a model there where that you could trademark it and call it the Jeremy automation division idea for every company in America or every company in the world.
The first chapter will be on leveraging chaos search machine learning, obviously. I mean, we've established that. Can I ask your thoughts on no code, the no code movement?
Well, I studied computer science in the 80s, and at the time, languages like C++ and object-oriented programming were emerging, and there's a lot of complexity in that, and also graphical user interfaces were emerging, so event-driven programming were emerging. So I'm really dating myself.
Dave, how old are you, man?
I'm 81. I was a couple of classes behind Betty White. No, I'm just kidding.
We're gonna find out this podcast was directed by like M. Night Shyamalan, and
no.
You happen to be.
Where I'm going with a long-winded answer is I started with HyperCard, Visual Basic. And more.
What was Alan Turing like in person?
He was a super nice guy. He had great ideas, and the Turing machine made it all happen. No, but I do think there's an opportunity in low code and no code, and because I think it empowers the masses, and I know we love our there is job security and understanding programming languages. I know you've got a bunch under your belt. I've certainly got a bunch under my belt, but logic and the ability to automate, for people, whether it's kids doing Roblox, or older people who want to automate, their lights in their house. I think low code's coming in a lot of different ways, and I think there's pros and cons to that, but I'm a fan, as you can tell.
All I would say is that we have no-code solutions. They're called applications.
Yep.
Right. And so the idea of somebody being able to, write and have a process done without having to write any code is, there's already a lot of these solutions, and you can go like Excel is essentially a no-code coding solution. I think if you look at typically what people are talking about is like, well, there's ones and zeros and then assembly and then low level language, and and it keeps getting abstracted and abstracted. I fully agree they will continue to abstract. I just don't know if we'll ever reach a threshold where we don't require software engineers who can always go a level or two lower. Like it just,
you're right.
Everyone loves Excel, extremely powerful, but at some point it's sort of, you reach this barrier where it's like, well, I can't deliver Instagram using Excel, so.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like you think about componentization of things and like what's in the components. It at one point it's a subroutine, and eventually it's an app, or a server was a physical thing, then it became a virtual thing. So maybe we just look at different layers. We got containers today, so maybe it's just different. What's being encapsulated in the element, and I think there's always going to be a need for software engineers.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. At least, in my remaining, 3 years of life.
87 years of life.
All right, that's a bit dark. Hey, well, I want to thank you again, Jeremy, for spending the time with us today, and certainly wish you and Purple Cow nothing but success in 2022. This has been great, and I hope we continue to keep our conversations going, and if anyone has any questions about anything we've covered, certainly you can reach out to us directly. We'll include our Twitter links and email, etc. And you can hit the Purple Cow website and Chaos Search website for more information on our respective companies' products, as well as any of the others that we've mentioned that certainly probably we like, but probably not as close to putting food on the table. Not to say that this is fully a commercial enterprise. We like tech a lot, and Jeremy and I have had a lot of conversations about everything from middle out to mainframes to how much data can you fit on an iPhone. So it's all good.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully looking forward to more discussions like this in the future.
Awesome. Hey, have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave.